Welcome to the Programmes Dialogue. This is a series of events in preparation of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, with their successful formats and with their experiences of the last 10 years, and national program owners and program managers. The event series is hosted by the joint programming platform Smart Energy Systems. Please be aware Welcome to the Programmes Dialogue. This is a series of events in preparation of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, one of the partnerships under preparation for Horizon Europe, the new framework program for research and development. This series of events is facilitating a dialogue between ERA-Nets with their successful formats and with their experiences of the last 10 years and national program owners and program managers. The event series is hosted by the joint programming platform Smart Energy Systems. Please be aware that the events are provided on our YouTube channel as a live stream and as a recording, resulting in the fact that whatever you contribute in the chat or via live talk will be public. The Clean Energy Transition Partnership is going to be a transnational joint programming initiative to boost and accelerate the energy transition, building upon regional and national RDI funding programs. Therefore, the Programmes Dialogue intends to create joint knowledge about the most powerful and successful formats and tools to promote research, technology development, and innovation. In a mutual learning and capacity building exercise, we want to learn about good practices, successful activities, effective approaches, but also about the things we tried to do and that did not work out. For this, we want to create together with you an open and interactive atmosphere. The dialogue events are organized in a SureFix mode every Friday at 11 a.m. on this YouTube channel. Each event will present one or a group of initiatives, and we have already a dense schedule until mid-March. However, if you want to present your program or initiative and you are not on the list yet, please let us know and we will find a slot for you. Each of the events will have the same format of presentation blocks of about 10 to 15 minutes, highlighting a specific topic or aspect, followed by a question and answer and discussion session of about 10 minutes. If you have a question, please use the chat function in the YouTube channel. We will bring it up. You want to get on stage and discuss live with the speakers? Send your request in the chat. We will bring you up on stage. The process to develop the Clean Energy Transition Partnership has come a long way. We have started with a stakeholder groups dialogue with all the SETPlan initiatives and ERA-Nets, developing thematic RDI challenges in spring and summer last year. Based on these inputs in a country's dialogue, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda was developed and launched in a SETPlan conference side event in November 2020. Now we want to bring together all the partners, funding institutions, ministries, program managers and program owners that are ready to contribute to the implementation of this new joint programming initiative. The number of countries and regions joining has been growing and growing over the last months, and there are still new partners coming on board. A great core team of enthusiastic experts from different organizations all over Europe is committed to bring this initiative forward. Enjoy the Programmes Dialogue, and now let us introduce the speakers of today.
Hello and good morning, everyone. From my side, Michael Hübner from the Austrian Ministry of Climate Action. Welcome to the audience that is every Friday connecting with us, and welcome to the speakers of our today's event, which is about ERA-Net Bioenergy and BESTF. I have my co-moderators on site. That's Gerdy Brembroek from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency and Frederik Lundström from the Swedish Energy Agency. And now I will introduce the speakers of today's event. That is Kees Quandt from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. Very happy to meet you, Kees, again. Kees was the first ERA-Net coordinator that I had the pleasure to work with as a participant of the first phase of the ERA-Net Bioenergy. So it's really also a personal pleasure to reconnect in that manner today. Birger Kerkhoff from Fachagentur Nachwachsende Rohstoffe, who at that time also was a colleague in the club from the very beginning on, and Boris Vajev from Fachagentur Nachwachsende Rohstoffe, and also René Wiesmeyer from Netherlands Enterprise Agency. Welcome to our dear speakers. We are very interested to hear and to see what you're gonna present to us. The meeting today, or the presentation today, is a little bit different from the first ones we had, in the sense that, and we will hear that, I think, in the first block, that this initiative or initiatives evolved somehow in parallel, or you will explain then how it works. But we are talking basically about the ERA-Net Bioenergy and the co-fund, the BESTF, as I understand. And this will also be reflected in the setup of the meeting. So we will, I think, in an earlier block, talk more about the ERA-Net, and then more about the co-fund aspects. And I think that will be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. Let us start, I think, with the first block. The first presentation block is about an introduction about BESTF and bioenergy in a nutshell, as I see here, and it is presented by Kees Quandt. Kees, before you start, a little bit of your personal background. I have introduced you a little bit from my personal perspective, as it was fun to work with you as the coordinator of the ERA-Net Bioenergy from the very beginning. What is your educational background? Are you based in bioenergy already from the very beginning, or where did you start from?
Oh, I started from solar energy. So my first work was on solar energy. And from there, I moved into biotechnology at the company DSM. And from there, first I was a program manager for solar energy at our agency. And then I thought, well, let's go for the big things. So I went for bioenergy.
Cool. And how did it come that you initiated this first ERA-Net Bioenergy? When was it actually?
That was, well, it's also in my story, but it was initiated in 2012. I still remember writing the proposal for this. I was in a plane on the way to South Korea to give a presentation there about green electricity, but the plane did not depart. It had a problem. So I was sitting there in front of the plane, typing and typing, till they told me, you have to get out, you have to go home. Sorry, we cannot fly. So I still remember that. So that was the start of ERA-Net Bioenergy.
Very good. Sometimes things happen that make other things possible. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that nice background story. And now let's jump into the first presentation part. And yes, I see already the slides, and Kees, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Also, thank you very much for the nice words and all the work that we already have done together. So next slide, please. So I will give a short introduction on so why are we talking about bioenergy? Also about the set plan and how this all has evolved from the European policy and how this all started. Tell something about an introduction on BESTF, but also about ERA-Nets, ERA-Net Bioenergy, BESTF, and then, well, shortly already start with results and evaluation. But this is the first of 4 presentations. So later on, we will go into detail into ERA-Net Bioenergy and also into BESTF. So next slide, please. So why bioenergy? It's at this moment, bioenergy is in many countries very much a disputed renewable energy source. And of course, there are reasons for that, but there are also reasons why we have to consider bioenergy. First of all, I think we have to see bioresources as a renewable resource. And it's growing, it is available. So each year, actually, new quantities of biomass are added and can also be used by mankind. But we have to do that in a sustainable way. It's also important to think about bioresources as stored solar energy in biomass. So it's basically, let's say, CO2 is extracted from the atmosphere. Each year you can see in the spring with all the trees on the northern hemisphere that the CO2 concentration on the Earth goes down, because all the trees, they absorb CO2 from the atmosphere. So bioenergy makes, let's say, growth possible, and also the carbon cycle, and for that reason, it is considered as carbon neutral. I think it's also important to see that bioresources are available for all markets. Yes, it can be used as a product, but also when we look at the energy supply, we can produce electrons, we can also produce heat, and we can produce fuels. So when we compare it, for example, to wind energy or solar energy, it is actually only electrons, and from the electrons you have to go further, either into hydrogen or batteries to store it. But here we have an integrated storage already in the biomass. And this also shows that when we think about the future, let's say, and we will discuss that later further on when Birger comes to this, but it's really talking about, let's say, integration of bioresources into the renewable energy system. Yeah, so we have to find the right place, and this place may change over the years when we get more windmills, more solar energy, and we have more renewable electrons, then we will use biomass in a different way than what we do nowadays. And we also have to integrate it very much with the material use and production of biomass. So I think this is really a very special position for bioenergy. It also makes it complicated, and it also needs, let's say, careful consideration, because within CETP we're talking about energy, but when you talk about bioresources, you also talk about the material, renewable materials, and that's important to consider as well. Next slide, please. So in Europe, of course, we have for a long time already the SET plan. The SET plan is asking for collaboration and integration. And next slide, please. We have, let's say, based on this, the SET plan has organized itself into, it was in the past, it were the IBIS, it was the European Industrial Bioenergy Initiative. Later on, this was formulated into the European Technology and Innovation Platform. So this is a kind of combination of, let's say, industry, together with research to formulate plans and how to see how we can go forward with bioenergy in Europe. But also it asks for collaboration between the member states and on the research side. So that is the ERA that is working on the research side. And we then organized also the ERA-Nets within this scheme. So next slide, please. So from the ETIP bioenergy, let's say we have chosen for a focus because as I told you, we can do many things with bioenergy. So we have to look, let's say, at specific value chains that are very important, and we have taken value chains that look through gasification into synfuels, gasification to biomethane. It's also about, let's say, gasification and production of electricity, and also pyrolysis and torrefaction as a densification technology. So this all is, let's say, required to realize these chains. And then, of course, we have the thermal conversion on one side, on the top, but also we have the value chains for the biological conversion through the production of sugars into, again, either products or to bioethanol and second generation biofuels. And in the bottom, it's also shown that aquatic biomass could also play a role in the future. So the biorefineries are crucial in this. It's really, let's say, refining the bioresources in such a way that they can be used for materials and for energy supply. Next slide. So this is about the history. So we have, let's say, a lot of different ways to support this bioenergy development. So we started in 2004 with the ERA-Net Bioenergy, and that was an FP6 project. And it was, as you can see here in this graph, it was one of the first ones, but also one of many different ERA-Nets. So there are a lot of experiences. And we have run between 2004 and 2010 this ERA-Net Bioenergy as an FP6 project. And after that, up till now, it is a self-funded collaboration between agencies. So this also shows its success, and later on you will hear more what we have done and how we have achieved this success. So later on we got the FP7 program, and under the FP7 program we had the ERA-Net Plus, and under the ERA-Net Plus there was the added co-funding was available. It was not called co-funding then, but there was, let's say, additional funding available for collaborations. And that's why we have organized then the BESTF1 and the BESTF2 program. And then under the, let's say, Horizon 2020 program, we got the possibility for the co-fund projects with also the additional money. And then what we have done then was organize a call under the co-fund, the BESTF3 call, but the additional money has been used to finance ERA-Net Bioenergy. So that's how we have integrated the BESTF3 and the ERA-Net Bioenergy. And that actually has been running up till the end of last year. Next slide, please. So the key objectives are, of course, is really to launch, implement joint calls for, let's say, transnational for proposals to support under BESTF. It was to support a demonstration of, let's say, bioenergy. And under ERA-Net Bioenergy, it was very much to finance the lower TRL. So the development, research and development, that was more the core of ERA-Net Bioenergy. So that's how over the last, let's say, 6 years, they nicely have been able to work together. And part of this is also, it's, let's say, the second bullet here is to keep, let's say, the networking between the different agencies, to make that available, to set up joint actions, and that has worked very well. So it's both the co-fund and the ERA-Net Bioenergy have been able to support that. Next slide, please. So this is the TRL slides, and here you can see the axis with the TRL, and also how BESTF3 and ERA-Net Bioenergy are positioned. You can also see the red line also shows that the further you get, the higher TRLs, the more money you need. But that's also often there is a problem. So BESTF3 was really looking into, let's say, the higher TRLs, so between 6 and 8. So the value of this, to get across the value of this, that was an important topic there. Whereas ERA-Net Bioenergy supports the projects that, let's say, bring up new knowledge and support the development of bioenergy. So next slide, please. So we have done this together, and this is how we started, actually. So this is an old slide, and later on the new slide will come up with the present let's say the present partners. So in Austria we started with BM-Vit, but now it's called BMK. And we started with DEC in the UK. So they also have now the new name BES. But what you can also see is that we have partners on the ERA-Net Bioenergy side. So that's the right-hand side. So they work together on ERA-Net Bioenergy. And on the left-hand side, you can see the BESTF3 partners. And also part of the partners like RVO, but also FNR, they are in both networks. Yeah, so that's how we have been working together. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, this is the new scheme. Yes, with the showing BES, but also let's say the partners that are on the ERA-Net Bioenergy. And the new MOU has been signed. And in this new MOU, you can see the countries that are the agencies that are participating in this MOU for ERA-Net Bioenergy. And that is active until the future. Yeah, so that's Austria, Germany, Poland, and Switzerland. And other countries can join, of course. Next slide, please. So ERA-Net Bioenergy is a network of, let's say, ministries, funding agencies to really improve, let's say, bioenergy research with coordination and cooperation. And so these are really the calls, and this is how we have operated over the last years between 2004 and 2010. And since the year 2011, we are self-funded. It's a continuing collaboration. Next slide, please. So it has had 13 joint calls. They will explain to you later on by Igor, and then we will also have 58 projects were funded, and a lot of different countries have been involved in this ERA-Net Bioenergy. Next slide, please. So this was a kind of first overview to get you a little bit acquainted with the different networks. After this, we will discuss about ERA-Net Bioenergy. Then we will go back more into detail about BESTF1 and 3. And then after that, we will talk about the future. Okay, with that, I would like to conclude. Next slide, please. Yes, this first presentation. Yes, so, and then open for questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kees, for this first introduction and overview. Very impressive. I took two things that I recognized that I found interesting. Particularly, one thing is that bioenergy, of course, really is somehow a technology or a field of technologies that is very much interlinked to many things. So not only the different energy systems, but also the production and material systems. So very interesting what that means also in terms of the groups of stakeholders that you have to deal with, and I think it will have had some also effect on how you are structuring your work or how you are working on involving these different communities in the projects. Another observation, 13 joint calls, that's really something. So there's a lot of experience how to do joint calls. I remember we started with the very first exercises at the beginning, which were really new land at that time in 2004 and so and the following years. And now we have this kind of routine in many networks and doing this quite successfully. That's really cool. What I also learned from your presentation is that you are already used to manage different setups and groupings and contractual situations and agreements in conjunction with each other, because you have the ERA-Net, which is self-financed, you have the BESTF, and so on. So it was also interesting that you have already gained a lot of experience how to deal with these complex situations. Gerdy and Frederick, do you have any first observations from the presentation of Kees? Or any questions?
Well, I can also say that that it's an impressive work that you've done with the ERA-Net Bioenergy, and I would be curious to have a little bit more view on how you see the way that the biorefinery and bioenergy needs to collaborate.
Yeah, so let's say how well there are a lot of different ways of collaboration. I mean, there is one way is to look at it from, let's say, a technical point of view. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then of course we are really looking at bioresources, and we try to get as much value out of the bioresource as possible. So we are talking here about biorefineries where we produce chemicals, products out of the bioresources, and then let's say the residues can then be used for let's say the residues can then be used for energy supply. Basically, mm-hmm. What you see in the paper and pulp factory, yes, in either in Sweden or in Netherlands, and so that's how it works. So that's how I see the technical collaboration, also with the new biorefineries that will come up, and with a lot of new products. Now, when we talk about, let's say, research collaboration within CETP, I think this needs some further exploration. We will discuss this later on also, because here energy and renewable resources, they are linked to each other, and so within the bioresources we will have a follow-up of the GTI on the bio-based resources. And then we have here also the CETP, and we will have to see how that can be nicely integrated. Yes, and I'm not yet sure what is possible there on that side.
Maybe one aspect, as we are in our current initiative, the Joint Programming Platform Smart Energy Systems, dealing a lot with system integration, with energy system integration. And we are always looking for flexibilities, and something that is not touched very often in the discussions is somehow materials or products as a kind of storage. And maybe this is also a link between the energy systems and the bio product production. I mean, in biorefinery, because in times of over supply, you can basically put out many products that where energy is then somehow saved and stored.
Mm-hmm.
Fredrik, any more remarks from your side at the moment?
Thank you very much. No, it was an interesting presentation and start of this block. I guess I have hundreds of questions around bioenergy and biomass, how it evolves, but maybe others will ask more questions on that. So I would like to focus on another aspect. I mean, one impressive thing and interesting thing is that you have such a long experience in your network. You've really been around defining and developing ERA-Net as a concept. And I guess, are there any key takeaways that you have or that you would think are important for the future development, given that how did it look when you started and where you are at now? I mean, has it changed very little, or would you say that's changed much?
Mm-hmm. Well, this whole session is devoted to answer that question. So there will be more presentations. So I would suggest to come back to this question later on, rather than already giving the answer at this moment.
We have one very technical question also in the chat. That is there any relation with the ERA-Net co-biotech? I don't know what this is about. Do you know it?
Yeah, no, it's. I think it's better if my colleague answers this question.
Boris, your insights on this.
Yeah, yeah, I would be happy to answer this question because I'm also involved in the executive team of ERA Co-Biotech. So we have some relation, but in fact, ERA Co-Biotech is more focused on material use. So bioenergy is not in the scope. So we try to avoid overlaps. We also have some discussion to join or to have joint calls, but it was not possible to find a, let's say, agreement how to organize it, because some funders in ERA-Biotech cannot fund bioenergy research, and this makes the things complicated.
Okay. Yeah, things that we will also experience with the many interfaces that we will have to look into with the new initiative. Fredrik and Gerdi, are we ready to go to the next session, or do you have any additional questions or remarks at this point?
No, as I'm still waiting for, I want to go to the next session so I can hear the answers on. No, I'm curious. Maybe he has more questions, but I'm curious to learn more.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good, because then this was the perfect link over to the next session, Boris, together with you answering this question. And the next session will be about lessons learned and good practices from ERA-Net Bioenergy. And you will do this together with René Wismeyer, is that correct?
Yes, but in fact, René is in holiday now, so I will give the presentation myself only, cool. Alone, but he will support me in the question
preparation
sections.
Very good.
Also, thank you, Michael. Thank you all for your attention. It is a big pleasure to me to share with you some insights from the engine room of ERA-Net Bioenergy, and also to follow up on what already Kees had presented. Just I will start where Kees stopped. So he mentioned actually 13 calls, but we actually managed to start a 14th as well, which was just open. I wanted to give you some rough idea what these calls are about. We not need to go in much detail on that, but we can see that there are variety of topics which we have covered in the last 17 years. And also, I would like to draw your attention on the 5th call. It was very successful because it was also joint call with Wisdom-Net Plus, which was at that time working. And we have a long tradition in collaborating with different ERA-Nets and also with different funding agencies. Then when we come to the near future, you can see here that the topics are getting broader, but also more interdisciplinary, because the demand and the needs change in the last years. And also you can see here that the last 3 calls from 11 to the 13th were supported and were organized together with BESTF3. And as I mentioned already, the 14th call was organized recently, started in October 2020, and it is implemented now. We just received the pre-proposals. So how we managed to do this? It is more the technical part. You remember the slide of Kees here, and how we coordinate our efforts. On the one side, we have the BESTF Secretariat managed by Chris Young from Microwire, who is doing this for BESTF3 in charge on behalf of BASE. And on the other hand, we have the ERA-Net Bioenergy Secretariat, and my colleagues Karina, René, and I manage it, and work together to organize all different steps. And also we interact with Chris so that we can, in the past 3 or 5 years, we could organize a lot of, I don't know what happened. I don't see my presentation. Okay, now it's again there. So the idea was to have more efficient use of time and resources. So we organize always 2 meetings a year to discuss the different steps in the calls, but also as the most of the funders are the same, so we could save time and can organize the meetings back to back, and also have chance to network, interact, and exchange about the different development in the different countries. So, and as also Kees mentioned, these additional calls were part of the additional activities in BESTF3, and it was very good that also funders from the consortium of BESTF3 were having access and also chance to participate in the additional calls, and despite they are not part of ERA-Net Bioenergy. Well, also it was mentioned, 4 organizations want to keep this instrument because of this nice, let's say, and efficient work, so that all projects which we have and which we will select in this 14 call can be more supervised and supported until they come to their end. So now how we prepare the call, maybe it is interesting. It is, I know, in different ERA-Net different ways. Usually we start with requesting all partners in the beginning of each year, and then before, let's say, March, we collect all feedbacks. If there's some ideas for scope or some other, let's say, issues about the next goal, then we used to discuss the scope during the meeting, which we have, where also we discuss the eligibility of the proposal. So after that, we, let's say, working on the current goal, we also look in the future. In some cases, we get fast agreement. In other cases, like as you can see, after step 2, we have to do more steps, means that we need more discussions, we need more work on this, because always our goal was to have as much funders as possible on board. So means that we have to find the best compromise, because sometimes you have a Ministry of Agriculture which is only allowed to fund any certain substrate or feedstocks, and other ministry having broader scope, so they can do everything in area of bioenergy. So, and this of course means that sometimes it is difficult to find a compromise, so that you have to work more. What we use, for example, in the last 2 calls, where we have to put additional efforts to agree on the scope, and especially, and was just to organize more meetings. We used to organize a small workshop where we explain each other what kind of priorities are currently in place in the different countries. We also used to make some small surveys where the partners can indicate topics. And at the end, we managed to find a topic for the 14 goals, asking the funders to prioritize these topics, because usually it's like this, that many agencies say, okay, these all topics are relevant, but the timing is different. In some countries, some topics are now having higher priority, and in other countries, at the moment, there is no need for further research. So this was after this happened. So once we have an agreement, usually we pre-announce the call, ask also external organizations where we know that they might be interested, all partners in the consortium once again, if they would like to join. And then we get the final feedback, something like September, and in October we will launch the call. Just as an example, I have prepared my next slide to show you how it is in case of the 14 call. And this is, usually we start in October, and up to October next year, in this case 2021, we have gone through the whole steps and selected the projects for funding. And usually the national negotiations take a few months so that the projects can start normally in the beginning of the next year. So then after the projects are selected and national negotiations are completed, the most important is that there is consortium agreement within the different partners, and all agencies look that this is the case before they provide the money. Of course, every agency have here their monitoring rules and regulations which the applicants, or let's say project beneficiaries, have to follow. But we also have a monitoring by the Secretariat, and we ask to receive midterm reports. We don't organize midterm seminars, and we ask the projects to propose where they want to have their final seminar. In case it's there, we have, let's say, project with similar topics, we could organize a special event, but it's mostly beneficial for the projects to go to big events where their topics is really in the focus and not just one of many, so that they can have better reach a broader audience. And then we receive a final report on the whole project and all partners, and we prepare a fact sheet which just to inform the community about the achievements of the projects. Okay, communication and dissemination activities. We also used to share resources there. Means that we help each other to get more attention, and we link different information on the both websites, ERA-Net Bioenergy and BESTF. So we publish joint newsletter for both initiatives. And also we promote the calls on both ERA-Nets. What is also interesting, I mentioned already, we organized in the last 3 years, every year 2 live meetings. Since COVID, this is not more the case, but I would like to also thank to all partners which just voluntarily hosted the different meetings and make these meetings possible. It was also nice to see or to visit the partners, and this is also very helpful to get a good atmosphere in the team. I think I somehow I missed a slide what I didn't explain, or maybe the slide is hidden. I just go back. Yeah, was how we implement the call. I will go back. What is most of you know that usually we have 2 steps to select the projects. This is also the case in ERA-Net Bioenergy. We have pre-proposals and then we have full proposals. But the interesting part is here that the first step is the evaluation is done by the funding agency. Means that all agencies have to make sure that the pre-proposal we have selected are in line with their national requirements and are eligible. And there are different approaches, and at the FNR we have own experts working at the agency. Some other partners used to invite external experts, or some partners just make an eligibility check and do not check further because their program is broad enough, so they don't need to take care about this. Okay, then in the second step, we usually have very fast eligibility check. Also, what I can say from the eligibility criteria, it is very important for us that we have balanced collaboration. Means that we should not have the case that some countries have almost the whole budget and some partners are just not really involved in the project. So we have special rules in the Codex for this, and we also try to involve as much as possible industry, SMEs, and in this regard, we are quite successful. I can just give an example. In the last 3 calls, we have around between 20% and 80%, where the mean value is about 50% of the partners are from the industry. Yes, and yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Okay, then go back. What we also do is to promote some results and attend different big events like EUBC, Case and Berger are always working like ambassadors of all these ERA-Nets, and we also have organized some seminars. We also collaborate with ERA-Net Bioenergy. The final forum of BESTF was organized back-to-back with the stakeholder plenary meeting. And we last year in Graz, during the Central European Biomass Conference, many of the projects were presented. But I must say, as we have limited resources, we just keep these activities on a, let's say, low flame, so that we only organize targeted events. So to summarize what we have learned and what are the benefits for the funding agency, after many discussions, we are happy that we have this format and of collaboration, so we can learn about different projects and research activities in the different countries and could avoid duplication. And also we can, of course, better use the resources. In some countries, for example, like Poland, I can remember in the first years they rarely managed to get some projects with smaller budget, but now we see that this is quite developed, so they have a lot of stakeholders, and they also try to increase the budget, so to provide more opportunities to fund projects. We also have built, as also Kees mentioned, quite a nice network, so we can have also other activities beyond our ERA-Nets. What we learned from the researchers, they like the opportunity to work together with other partners from other countries. There are, of course, national projects in this area, but the exchange of knowledge and technologies is also very much appreciated by them. I think also it's apply not only for researchers, but also for funders. The bureaucratic and workload is quite low, so we try to keep the things as simple and clear and transparent as possible. As I mentioned, we have quite a high interest of part of SMEs, and of course, it is very valuable to learn what is the current stage in the different countries, how their programs develop, and that's also making some troubles with funding calls, but also to get understanding why sometimes some things are not possible. And we have around, let's say, small to medium, or sometimes quite big consortia, more than 10, 15 partners. We're always open for any collaboration with different ERA-Nets. As I mentioned, we managed to organize a call with Wisdom, and also on this way to get more resonance or better resonance, or also working not only on the energetic but also material part of the biomass use. And of course, we get more critical mass doing this. Wow. As you know, there is also could be also challenges. And the last time we observed that the bioenergy gets difficulties in the society to be accepted, let's say some sustainability issues and also biodiversity and resources utilization are questioned. So also in this regard, the priorities in different countries might change and also change. In some cases, we had some problems with the elections where some problems to get enough budgets was observed. But also funding for some partners can be, of course, delayed because of these reasons. And as it was already mentioned, there are different pathways in the different countries how to proceed, how to use the biomass, either for bioenergy or better cascade use and keep the CO carbon longer, as long as possible stored. So we also have some feeling sometimes that the quality of the proposals is not the same as it was for 10 years or earlier. We try to optimize this and to have a closer contact with the applicants so that we can give him advice what we expect and how they can improve their proposals. Yeah, sometimes we have also problems to get enough money to fund all projects which we are recommended for funding. But I can also give a good example. Last go, the Austrian ministry managed to fund the Austrian participants to another program so that one project more could be funded. Yeah. Okay, I think that my time is over. You can see also the researchers sometimes have difficulties with us, but I think it is good process and the community is quite, small so that we know each other and can work very good together. Also, we can mention Brexit and some administrative changes in some organization made our work more difficult than it have to be. But that's normal, and we try always to find a way to overcome these difficulties. And yeah, actually, this was my last slide.
Thank you, Boris.
Of course,
great presentation.
René.
Thanks
And
again.
me.
We have René also. Hi, René. I think you made very clear, particularly in the last part of your presentation, that we are working in a policy environment. That's what all of our initiatives are facing, of course. But they're twofold, as you mentioned, because one thing is, of course, the market situation for the technology that you're working with. So as bioenergy has somehow problematized in the last time, this, of course, is maybe also discouraging for the markets, which, of course, has a drawback on the research field and research community. And on the other hand side, of course, the R&I policy framework that we are working in, given the yearly cycles of budgets, which might not turn out the way we expected it, or changes in policy, changes in governments, and so on, that, of course, are very important aspects. The usage of the different energies, or where we put the energy into, that's also an interesting aspect, I think, which has a lot of relations to the integration aspects of the different technologies and infrastructure. So we have a certain amount of wind energy, we have a certain amount of solar, we have a certain amount of bio, and many of them are capable to do a lot of things in terms of energy services. But where to put what in order to get a seamlessly acting system where all the energies are somehow used in the best way to have a stable system, to have the possibility to bring energies over to phases where some of the energies are not there so much, like wind and solar, that are interesting integration aspects that, of course, I think will play a big part when we bring all those different kind of initiatives and technologies together in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. question to my co-moderators if you have any questions, but also maybe to René if he wants to add some remarks. We have a couple of minutes to go.
Well, I guess that Boris has told everything you needed to know about the execution of the ERA-Net Bioenergy. So I think, yeah, I'll leave it up to the questions now. I think that's the best step forward now.
I would like to talk a bit more about the selection of the topics in relation to what member countries can fund, because you were saying that you have an alignment meeting and then you're discussing the topics. But what is do you narrow down to what all can fund, or do you work from a central topic where national preferences are still included in the call? Can you comment on that? Because it is a challenge I can see.
So I would take this question. It is really interesting. I was involved in the organization of the 12th and 13th call, especially the finding of the topics. And we also can observe that in the last years, also the funding agency shifted their priority, and the bioenergy, let's say, part get less, so that we also have some discussion about the identity of ERA-Net Bioenergy. But this various composition makes it also difficult. We have energy ministries which are not interested on material use at all. We have like agricultural ministries, we can do both. Or it's appeared that in some cases, some funding agencies shifted their priorities quite a lot to material use. So, and to find a way which topics could be interested for all so that they can participate. But as I mentioned, it's also a matter of timing. Sometimes it's like this, that this topic is interesting, but it's not relevant at the moment or not on the top of the agenda. Because the framework programs, they are quite broad, but which topic it is really relevant, it is up to the current situation. This can change from year to year. I could give an example. For example, for Austria, after the release of the bioeconomy strategy, it was a slight shift to more material use, so that we have to find a topic which also pay attention on this. So therefore, for the 13th call, we try with a combination of, let's say, bioenergy and also material use kind of bioengineering approaches, but we still pay attention that the main part of it is related to bioenergy or the income which have to be generated, because otherwise we will overlap with other ERA-Nets which are doing the same. So this is also because as it was mentioned, co-biotech, many of the funders are also participating there. So this is where you have to find a balance between the different let's say interests and priorities at the moment. But it is very dynamic process, and so it's not easy in last time to do this. In the, let's say, 12th call, we just sent 3 or 4 topics, and we have for one topic maybe almost all funders on board. So, but if this is not the case, then you have to negotiate, and this take a bit longer. And as I mentioned, we used to ask the funders about in 3 steps to describe the priority of the different topics. And then we can see, okay, high priority, or so we get kind of average where all funders have at least medium priority for this topic. If someone is having no priority at all, so we will lose them. And so we try to keep to get as much funders as possible on board. But yeah, it's very technical and sometimes time-consuming process. Yeah.
Yeah.
But perhaps I can add that as a self-sustained network, we could also be very, very flexible. So it was a difficult process from year to year, but it was also possible to define a call in which all partners could feel comfortable. Yeah. So flexibility is one of the main positive things of this ERA-Net Bioenergy. No restrictions from EU rules or whatever. So
yes, you can. Yeah, I see. Thank you. Yeah.
Frederick, something from your side? Or should we move to the
First
next
of all,
session?
thanks for a great presentation again, and really many interesting insights, both from the learning, but this last topic also I think about, which I guess, as you mentioned, your identity, it relates. I think this is something all of us more or less are experiencing, how with sector integration, with change in policy, going from maybe technology support of an industry or something more towards maybe climate targets or other targets. This is, of course, interesting. And I listen very carefully to what you say. And maybe one question I have there, what do you see looking forward? What would be your, maybe not expectation or desire that we can achieve if working more jointly, for instance, than in a CETP? What is the role of the bio resource in that, and how could that maybe help the continuous work for you in that area?
René?
Well, that's more a question for Kees, I must say, because he's really involved in the program.
Am I in the wrong section again? Yeah.
You gave them a hot, hot topic.
I asked about your topic. Yeah.
So perhaps you must save this question for him later on. There he is.
Yes, sir. Well, let's say there are several questions on how to proceed and so on, and I would like to have that discussion after the presentation that is given by Birger. Yeah, so because it is very complicated and there are a lot of possibilities. So please leave it till then. So let's first collect all our experiences, and then with that experience we can then develop solutions for the future.
Very good.
Thanks for that, Kes. Yeah, I hand back to you, Michael. I think I'm going ahead, jumping the sections here. Yeah.
No problem. So, but it also shows that we have some interesting answers ahead of us to all these questions. We also postponed some questions from the chat because we know that these topics will come up later. And so let's jump into the next session I would propose, and that is now the session about the co-fund. What have we learned here? That's the question that Kees is going to answer for us. The floor is yours, Kees.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, I'll try to give an answer. I would like to shortly describe BESTF. So it's BESTF 1, 2, and 3. So that's a nice counting. I also would like to stress that this BESTF has been organized by our partner from the UK. So that was first, it started with DEC, the Department of Energy and Climate Change. And lately it has moved over to BEIS. I think it's something like Business and Development Ministry. And especially, it was already mentioned, Chris Young, he was our, let's say, contact person that brought everything together. And so they could not be with us today, but they are the coordinator of this project. So I'm not the coordinator of BESTF, just a participant. And so I'm just presenting this as, let's say, something that we are still are doing. So BESTF is finished. Yeah. So next slide, please. We had several calls in BESTF. It's about bioenergy sustaining the future. So there was a call in 2012 and in 2013, both under FP7. And BESTF3 was then the call under Horizon 2020. This was the co-fund, and it's all about, let's say, having a call to have transnational projects that will support demonstration to get across this value of this, as I mentioned before, and of course also to have our agencies working together. Next slide, please. So BESTF1 and BESTF2, they started already a long time ago. I will tell you later on a little bit more about the projects that you have supported here. It was all about, let's say, bringing demonstration plans further, yes, to bring them across the value of this. So the goal was also to see how they could, let's say, make a next step. Of course, the proposal should fit within the value change that I explained to you earlier. It could also be supportive research for these projects could also be included. But we also have experience with this BESTF1 and BESTF2 that actually, while we had a lot of budget available for the companies, the market at that moment was still quite small, especially for the advanced biofuels. There was a lot of research, but the market still was limited at that moment. So which made it difficult for industries to invest in that area. Next slide. So let's have a look at BESTF3. Yeah, so our procedure, and it's actually a two-stage process. So first we launch the call, we get several proposals, we let's say select the best ones and then ask them for a full proposal, and we get then the final check. It took about a year, yes, more than 1 year to go from the call launch till project start. Yes, it's a long decision process. Next slide. The assessment in the two-stage approach, first what we did was, let's say, to have an eligibility check by the national funding bodies. So to look at the eligibility, also the BESTF3 eligibility. I will tell you more in detail later on how this looks like. And then in the second stage, we look at the full techno-economic assessment with independent experts at the excellence, but also the quality and the impact of the project that was proposed. So the next slide, please. Yeah, so the eligibility, it's really that we are looking at, let's say, the scope. So the project should be within the scope, which means we are looking at the 7 value chains that were, let's say, determined by IB. We also really need, let's say, 2 different countries. Yeah, so in the proposal, at least 2 different countries should participate. There should also be a clear risk and benefit sharing. And there should be, let's say, the cost should be evenly distributed among the partners. So a maximum of 70% of the eligible cost could be with one partner. What was also important within BESTF3, because we were looking at demonstrations, is that it should be an industry-led project. Research institutes, universities could contribute, but it should be industry-led. And we should have a clear evidence of matched funding. So the industries really should have this additional funding and be able to show that. Next slide. So the stage 1 proposals that we saw here, we had about 9 proposals that were submitted, and from this we have selected 6 to submit a full proposal. So next slide, please. And so these were the 6 projects that were, let's say, submitted from the different countries, and we have selected 3 of them for execution. Next slide, please. And these were, first of all, it was waste to bio, and this project really looks into, let's say, the utilization of waste streams and the production of bioethanol and biogas. So this was carried out by partners from Spain and from the United Kingdom. The CETP-Bio project was carried out by partners from Sweden and Denmark, and it was very much looking at the production of bioethanol and biogas from, let's say, low-cost biomass. And the Phoenix project was looking into, let's say, the production of syngas and utilization that in a gas engine. And this was a collaboration between a Dutch partner and a UK partner. Next slide, please. So you can see here the budget, and I have to look at my paper because I cannot read it from the screen. But so totally the BESTF3 budget was about 5.3 million euro, and the total project cost, it was 9.1 million euro. And from this BESTF3 budget, the 30% top up from the EC, it was about 1.8 million euro. Well, at the end, we did not, let's say, use all these funds because the project CETP-Bio with Denmark and Sweden, that was stopped earlier. It did not come to a full conclusion. But the other two projects, Waste2Bio and Phoenix Power, they have been concluded by the end of last year. And so the reports are available there. And this means also that let's say the BESTF3 call was closed and is ready now. Next slide, please. So some information about BESTF1. So these are the different projects that we have funded there. It's all about, let's say, new ways of gasification, production of biofuels, advanced biofuels, or biogas. And next slide, please. Also in BESTF2, we have projects looking at, let's say, different resources like waste, production of hydrogen, butanol, but also biomethane from waste, and to improve efficiencies of these projects and bring it to lower costs. So these, all these projects are concluded. And next slide, please. Yeah, so we have done an evaluation of, let's say, BESTF and ERA-Net joint calls. And what we see is that we have, let's say, national programs where we fund research, but we also have European programs where a lot of partners are working together in big projects. And what we see with ERA-Net and also BESTF co-fund is that it kind of fits in between, with only a few countries and a few partners can work together to develop a technology or know-how and bring that to the market. So there is really the added value of this ERA-Net and of this co-fund. Next slide, please. So we also have asked our let's say, the project coordinators of what they see as let's say, the added value of BESTF. And indeed, let's say, what they see is that, of course, it gives an additional budget available. It also gives, let's say, the possibility to involve new entities. So it improves collaboration to bring new innovative technologies to the market and demonstrate it really at a certain level so that it gets ready to the market. And so to do this at an industrial scale was really an advantage of the BESTF3 call. And I think that's also something that makes it worthwhile to do this. But of course, it also needs a follow-up with good market conditions, and that's still a problem. Next slide, please. So what did we learn on, let's say, launching this call? First of all, we have, let's say, for the selection of proposals, it's to have a good guide, yes, so that we have our good internal procedures. Also, the applicants that have applied with a proposal, they got a, let's say, written evaluation. So it's good to inform everyone very well why their proposal was not approved. And we also evaluated each call. So with our experts from these 3 BESTF calls, we evaluated the criteria, and we were able to sharpen the criteria. So we think there is good experience on, let's say, joint financing and also project evaluation from this project, and that also could also be of value for the CETP. Next slide, please. We also experienced, of course, problems. For example, one problem is raising the national funds. Yeah, so let's say the how do you get enough money? Yes, from your national funds. It's also to attract, let's say, industries to come up with a proposal. They are sometimes reluctant to bring in a proposal under this call. It also implementation of projects, I would say. So we have under BESTF3, we have lost 1 project. Also, the other projects, it was not easy to bring that to a complete end. Partners change names, change, let's say, ownership. All these kinds of things can happen. So for that reason, we also have underspent the budget that we have available. So these were some of the problems. So next slide, please. From, let's say, the national programs point of view, what we have seen is that each country has own national rules, and to follow the national rules and at the same time to collaborate, it's an issue. It can make it complicated. It's also the time scale. So for example, in the Netherlands, we have a certain framework and certain time frame where people can submit proposals. So when you do it together with other countries, it has to fit within this time frame. And when we look at the impact, despite these problems, we think that what we have done is we have demonstrated something. So that is positive. We have also secured funding so that, let's say, commercialization and de-risking has become possible. So I think there are certain achievements that we can look upon, and also the industries, the 2 projects within BESTF3 look back at, let's say, a successful result. So the final slide. So to conclude, I think we look here, let's say, leverage of national research through the European collaboration. It is, let's say, it helps industries to do more than what they could do on their own. It fills the gap for the SMEs, as I explained you earlier, on top of what can be done through Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe. We had here in this BESTF3 and also the previous BESTFs valuable demonstrations, but we also see that it's not easy to implement. Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, the market is somewhat lacking, especially in the advanced biofuel side. So if you want to develop technologies, there should also be a good guarantee for a market based on policies under the Renewable Energy Directive or others that are available in Europe. And with that, I would like to conclude this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kees. Very good that you also put the finger on the points that are hurting sometimes with a given framework we are working in and the difficulties that we're facing. I think many aspects are very similar, of course, to the co-fund actions that we have been working on in different networks. I would love to focus on one aspect that I think is really very special to your network. That is that you have been trying to work particularly on demo projects. I find that very interesting because that is really not so easy to do, because a demo project, as it says, already has a demo site, and of course necessarily this demo site is based in one of the partner countries, and makes it maybe not so easy for the others to contribute or to work together on eye level. And you also mentioned that you had a certain rule that somehow the work has to be distributed among the partners at least somehow equally. So it cannot only be the case that this is done by more or less one partner country and the others have a very minor role. Could we elaborate a little bit more on this aspect? Because I think that's really very special to your network, and maybe Fredrik and Gerdi have also additional remarks to this before you answer.
Oh, okay. I can answer.
You can go ahead and answer from my side. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was about to answer, but then you kind of stopped me. Yeah, indeed, that has been very difficult, and indeed that also, as I showed you already, there were not many proposals coming up. Yeah, so it was really difficult to find industries interested to do this. So it was not easy. When I look back, let's say specifically, at the different proposals. So in BESTF1 and BESTF2, often it was a research. It was an industry together with a research institute. So the research institute then supports the industry in developing the technology further. BESTF3 was specifically on demonstration, and indeed it is on one location, and then there also has to be a benefit for the partners from the other country. So, for example, in the case of Phoenix, the Phoenix project, it was a gasifier in the UK, and it was a supplier of gas engines from the Netherlands. So they combined, so they have set up the demonstration in the UK and demonstrating their, let's say, the utilization of syngas fuels in the engine that was developed by the Dutch partner. So that made it possible for them to organize this. And the other project with Spain and the UK, it was a demonstration in Spain, but with, let's say, know-how from the UK that was used there. The project that failed indeed was a demonstration in Denmark, and therefore through all kinds of discussions. So at the end it was not possible to finalize it because the partners did not come to a complete agreement. So indeed this is complicated, yes, to do demonstration with different countries. And as what I also mentioned is that industries are more, let's say, willing to invest in a demonstration when, let's say, there is a very clear market perspective behind this demonstration. And the European policies have not always been very, let's say, consolidated. Yes, there have been changes, there have been discussions within the RED II, and so that makes it then difficult for companies to develop their technology. So these are, so certainly there are issues. So, well, I'm happy that we have been able to come this far as we are now at this moment, and we'll have to see what's next.
So as I understand it, in the case of this, of a kind of technology development, so a technical demonstrator, there is a certain chance that, okay, an industry and a company that is developing this demonstrator can work together with research institutes from outside their country, and they benefit because there might be know-how that is not available in the research partners in that country. And on the other hand side, this research partner, and that's maybe the value for the other country, that you don't find a place to try this out or to test this in practice in your country, then there is a certain value also for this economy. But basically, I think we could say that the more possibilities of task sharing, of course, you can identify, the more chances there are to loop different partners from different countries in. Is there something that you could somehow identify as a key success factor or key success factors where it worked, or is it more or less then really a question of the individual constellation, where say, okay, sometimes they're more or less it's a question of by chance that the fit is there and then it works.
Mm. Yeah, for me, it's difficult to generalize and give some general recommendations on how this can work. I think it depends very much on some partners that really can work well together and see a benefit for both sides in order to do such a demonstration.
So it are really very specific situations,
Yes.
someone could say.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I think so.
Thanks a lot. I think very insightful and a very interesting topic, because of course the more and more we come into system integration aspects, into development of many of the technologies, into very high TRLs, we come across these questions, and so we will have to answer them also in the framework of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Very good. Let's jump into the last session, which is about the future. It's entitled The Future Role, Where Does Bioenergy Fit In? And this is the presentation is done by Birger Kerkhoff. And maybe, Birger, we give you also on the way, and maybe it's possible to loop that already in during your presentation. Otherwise, we take it then for the question and answer sessions. But there were, I think, 1 or 2 questions that we postponed to this session. One of them was about the joint undertaking BioBest Industry and how your networks or initiatives are related to this or play a role with this. And then, of course, how you foresee your future, also of your network in the relation to the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. So please, the floor is yours, Birger, and I hope also your slides are already there. Yes, so you can start.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael, for the introduction. You can go straight away to the next slide then. So I will touch briefly the role of bioenergy in the energy systems, and also talk about bioenergy as part of the bioeconomy, and refer to the complementarity between the Clean Energy Transition Partnership and the set plan implementation working group number 8 about renewable fuels and bioenergy. I would actually start with a question by Hans-Günter Schwarz about the collaboration or with joint undertaking bio-based industries. And well, I think both have one challenge is that BESTF3 ended in December 2020, and for ERA-Net Bioenergy, the 14th call is still continuing, and the memorandum of understanding has been extended, but the ongoing 14th call will be the last call of ERA-Net Bioenergy. So as such, there will be no active calls from both networks anymore. On the practical side about the collaboration, I think that's something Boris already touched, and I think Kees as well. We always have this conflict with about energy use, material use, and responsibilities of ministries, and sector specificity of research programs. So far, this has turned out to be rather difficult, I would say. I would like to move to the next slide then. Well, and one question is really, is there a future for bioenergy at all? Well, if you look at the changes since the very early days of ERA-Net Bioenergy, so in the year 2004, you have seen a starting phase out or nearly complete phase out of nuclear energy in some European countries. You have seen the commencing phase out also of other fossil energy carriers such as coal and natural gas, in different countries, and I think the Netherlands are at the forefront there, for example. You have seen that solar PV and wind have gained a lot of momentum in terms of building up capacities, but also in terms of cost reductions. And so the European energy system has changed completely. So this issues of sector coupling have gained a lot of importance. Also, the contribution of intermittent energy sources has increased considerably and is a challenge to the energy system. However, still if you look on a global level, you will see that 50% of the current global renewable energy use stem from bioenergies. And when you look at this slide, which comes from the International Energy Agency, well, there's a key message, and which means this will continue also for the next 50 years. So certainly the let's say the emphasis will change over the next couple of years or next decades, but bioenergy will have to play a key role also in the future. And so the use of bioenergy in industrial applications is particularly important, as well as the use of in the transport sector. However, well, always key for bioenergy is the sustainable production and consumption of bioenergy carriers and bioenergy. So that's the basis of all what we are talking about. Next slide, please. Well, that's a couple of items Kees already mentioned in his introduction. What's the unique role for sustainable bioenergy? So it is already available now. It's versatile. It has this multitude of applications. So with heavy transport machinery, aviation, you can integrate it easily with existing energy infrastructure. It's storable, and also this aspect has been mentioned before, and also it can be stored in different physical forms then. And bioenergy can even deliver negative emissions when linked to carbon capture and storage. And that's also an aspect which I think the IPCC has really put at the forefront for the next decades. Well, if we really want to achieve greenhouse gas reduction, it will be very difficult to do this without bioenergy then. And well, and the place is particularly in replacing or displacing greenhouse gas intensive fuels. Next slide, please. I think that shows this aspects again from another angle then, and so it's really that I think for sector coupling you can really see that bioenergy is not competing with wind on solar energy, but it's rather complementing wind and solar energy when you look, for example, into the electricity sectors. And overall, I think certainly electricity is the key application or the key energy use where the other renewables have really gained a lot of momentum in the past 20 years or so. And there's, I think, the role, some parts of the role of bioenergy have decreased, but this grid stabilization role and this flexibility is really a key issue bioenergy can contribute. Well, and then the co-production of heat, electricity, fuels, and other products in a single high-efficiency processing plant is also something specific bioenergy can contribute. What is important, I think, and that also has been mentioned before, that's really this interlinkage between research and development and the policy framework. And well, I have two current examples for this. One is the EU taxonomy legislation, which is underway, where there is a question whether bioenergy is just a transitory activity or will continue to play a role. As I said, pointed out, in my view, it has to continue to play a role. But if you want to invest to convince somebody to invest in the sector, it will be very difficult to tell them, well, it's only for a very limited period of time. The other example is sustainable aviation fuels, which again are mentioned as a key market for biofuels because it's the other renewable energies have not much space there. However, if you look, for example, into the German draft legislation, there the current proposal says, well, when we talk about sustainable aviation fuels, we only talk about electrofuels. So advanced biofuels are explicitly excluded from this legislation. Next slide, please. Well, so think that's the aspect which has been mentioned before and which relates again to the joint undertaking bio-based industry, so that bioenergy is a part of the bioeconomy, and that makes the handling very complex, so it's strength and weakness at the same time. You have many feedstocks, many conversion processes, many applications, and even in one processing plant. So that's then the biorefinery approach. And it is these applications beyond the energy sector. So synergies are required with the BBI successor, so the new joint undertaking, Circular Bio-Based Europe. And I think that's also a challenge, I would say, for the other partnership, such as the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Then, next slide, please. Another thing I wanted to highlight, that's the budget of this set plan, implementation plan, action 8, renewable fuels and bioenergy. And if you have a look at the total required investment for the next decade, so the total budget is 107 billion. However, only 2.3 billion euro are earmarked for development. The major focus of this implementation plan is really on upscaling technologies to industrial scale. What is also important, and that's all, I think, important for all our discussions here, overall 37 or 73% of funding are requested from industry, 21% from member states, and only 6% from EU. So for development, it's a bit different. The share is 25%, 50%, 25% EU. And the key focus is on advanced biofuels and to some extent renewable fuels. But it's really important, I think, for CETP and IWG8 to exploit synergies. Next and final slide. Well, to sum up, in my view, there is an important future role for bioenergy in the energy system of the future. When we talk about defossilization of the energy system, all renewable energy sources will be needed and have complementary importance. And it is really crucial to achieve coherence between research and innovation funding and the political and regulatory framework. Thank you.
Great, Birger. Thanks for this presentation and the perspectives that we have with bioenergy and the bioenergy networks. Frederick is still there. That's very good because we were not sure if he could stay until to the end. So question to my co-moderators, if you have any questions to the last presentation. Also checking the chat at the moment if we have any any questions from there, but at the moment.
I can start. I'm happy because I'm still here. Sometimes when you work from home, someone needs to do work on the house. But I'll take the opportunity. It was a good section again, listening into what you described. And I guess I want to come back to the question. I think you have replied, all of you, a little bit but to the question of now as we're moving into the to a more integrated world, and what are the identity of the work that you've done in the resources you explained. I think very good examples on the roles that bioenergy plays currently, and also looking on these long-term trajectories. But what kind of activities or focuses can you elaborate a little bit on, do you think are attractive going from working with a clear focus still on bioenergy, but maybe working then more together with other thematic areas in a more integrated perspective? Do you mostly see challenges also, or do you see that there would be opportunities now because we can take other angles on this, how this interrelates?
Well, I think there are a lot of opportunities, definitively, but the challenge, I think, is really that it is so broad. And I think that already appeared during the preparation also of the CETP, when we were discussing where is the place of bioenergy in all the CETP actions and in the strategic research and innovation agenda and all this. And the answer is more or less the place is, to some extent, it's everywhere. So there's a key place in the storage section, where you already wonder when you talk about energy use, and then you say, well, the header is storage just, but it really, I think it has a role to play everywhere, which you could argue, well, it's an opportunity. At the same time, it's also a challenge, because how to organize this in a convenient way. And I think that was also been pointed out by Kees and Boris in their presentations before. I think these partnerships, both BESTF and ERA-Net Bioenergy, have developed over many, many years. So you have been able to build up a lot of confidence and trust between the partners. And that's possible if you have a partnership of 6 or 8 or 10 people. CETP will be a much bigger partnership. So how to achieve this, I would really see as a key challenge for the implementation of CETP, I would say. So that's not bioenergy specific, but it's overall, I think it's a challenge for the partnerships.
Yes and no. I mean, some of the technologies have a little bit, everything is interlinked in this partnership, that's for sure. But I think also that some technologies have a little bit easier play, because they have a clearer place where they have more or less can see their core group, and from where they can start to build bridges to the others. That might be really difficult here. That's I think an interesting aspect that I'm learning at the moment. And definitely I think this is something that we should take forward, because one thing is that you should maybe somehow try to find or have an idea where this home base within the CETP challenges for your group would be, if this would exist. And if it doesn't exist at all, then we really should think about how can you form somehow, I don't know, an agile group where you can keep the group informed with different, links that you're building to different initiatives or something like this. Because what I see also is in other initiatives that also maybe they are bigger or so it's easier for them, or the topics are based in the different institutions on a broader personal basis, so that's easier maybe for them to find persons to be present in more than one group. But particularly for institutions like yours, Birger, then the question is, okay, how can you relate to all these different groups as an organization that has limited personnel within other topics? You won't have PV people that particularly would engage in other parts of the initiative and that you could then connect with. So that's an interesting question, and this is really a learning of today. I think that we should take that forward, and I think it's really specific, a little bit specific, partly for the bioenergy, as it is a small network. One question back to you and the team. This is also maybe the point where we could loop the others in again, because I think we have you all now for the final talk session on board. Do you expect, because as you say, this is a small, medium group of funding partners that have been working very successfully over a very long time and built a very close relationship. Is bioenergy becoming more important? Do you expect that more countries would also join with working on the development of these technologies, or is this something that is very specific to this number of countries that are involved so far? Would you expect the network to grow within in the course of the CETP?
If I may say something,
please.
Yeah, so I think there are specific areas where we see that bioenergy will grow. This is specifically in the, let's say, fuels area, advanced fuels area, where, let's say, in the transport sector, so road transport, biofuels and electric vehicles, they will be complementary. And that's a development that will take several decades, and we will see how this can be complementary. So there, I think for a lot of countries, this is an interesting topic to look into that. More specifically, we have aviation and shipping fuels, where actually electricity is a very difficult, let's say, alternative. Also, hydrogen, often mentioned, but it will take a long time before that is fully developed. So I think that's also in a lot of countries an important topic to consider, and where a lot of research needs to be done. And finally, I think it's the integrated approach for materials and energy. So the biorefinery approach, where we look for, let's say, sustainable industrial production. Of course, we can use electricity, renewable electricity from solar, from wind, but it's not always available. So, and also it has limited application. So I also see there also bioresources as an important resource for industry. Yes, so these are, I think, several markets where each country in Europe is looking at and trying to find ways on how to solve this, and also to see what research is required there. So there is a real mission ahead of us.
If I may add one sentence, I think bioenergy really has a role to allow smooth transitions within our energy system, and because it offers solutions which are available. For example, when you look into transportation, that's solutions which you can use in the existing vehicle fleet. So you don't need to wait for, well, the number of battery-powered cars to increase, which you can only introduce into the market via new vehicles, but you have solutions to decarbonize the transport system, which can really materialize in the whole vehicle fleet. And I think that's really an important aspect in my view. But again, well, I've pointed out for sustainable aviation fuels, there are controversial views, and well, for bioenergy in general, there are some controversial views and some rather fundamental discussions then also, which makes this very difficult.
I would like to make a comment on this home base, because I would say that this challenge 3 that we have in the CETP-3, it's on fuels, it's on storage, it's on CCS and CCU. This would be, in my mind, the most appropriate candidate to work with and to develop the involvement of bioenergy into CETP from that challenge.
Good point, I think. And I mean, we are already in the middle of answering also Susanne's question, which was exactly about that. And one thing she emphasized was, where do you see the group of your organizations that are in your group in the CETP? Which brings me also to the question, because we haven't so much talked about, at least, or maybe I haven't seen it, about how you are structuring your, how you're sharing and distributing the work amongst you. So my question is, who is doing something like the call secretariat or so in your organization, and do you expect this organization also become an active partner in the coordination of the CETP, or do you see other partners part of the coordination of your network that would be interested to contribute also to the coordination work of the CETP?
So it's for ERA-Net Bioenergy, for BESTF, it has been the UK, so BEST. For ERA-Net Bioenergy, it has been a collaboration between RVO and FNR till, September last year. So at this moment, it's all in the hands of Boris.
He's the one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very
Oh,
interesting. So let's hang on this. I mean, I think because as I try to point out many times, as often as I can, we will need all the brains and all the hands that have been managing all the networks so far to work together in the CETP, as this is becoming a complex animal, and we are really discussing about setting it up like a supportive platform, more or less, for all these different technologies and networks that have been out there, which should not say, I don't want to say it will just be an umbrella for the existing initiatives like they are, but we will need to find new ways how to range ourselves. But definitely we think that we will need all the people that have been active and experienced in the network so far to help also with this initiative. Maybe in some cases it will not be the same people, as I had also a discussion with Stefan Novak. I mean, some of us are already facing somehow the end of their career, so we will hopefully at least be able to have them as a consultants still on board or in an advisory role. However, this can be arranged. But I mean, you have been working also with other people in your network that have taken over this experience, that have gone through this learning, and maybe they can step forward and become active in the new networks.
If I may comment, Michael.
Yes, please. Yes.
Well, I think we, from FNR side, well, we can certainly promise, well, to provide our expertise and our contacts also, but I cannot make larger promises, unfortunately, at the moment. And well, and you have seen that also, well, that's a result of with the current MOU. So the number of countries involved in ERA-Net Bioenergy has been decreasing. And so we certainly can help and assist to make contacts and to guide people to contact the right institutions and the right persons or so. But otherwise, it will be a bit difficult, I would say. Yeah. Sorry to have to say this.
No, it's good to know. Thanks for also these open words. And but let's stay in touch on this and see how we can utilize the forces that we have and the opportunities that we have. We are coming to an end of our today's event. We only have a couple of minutes, and I don't want to open a big box at the end or a big bottle at the end. Nevertheless, I mean, it's very clear that, and you touched it a little bit in your presentations, bioenergy has been problematized in the last years a little bit, which also we from Austria, it hit us somehow because we have always been technologically quite strong in bioenergy. As a final wrap up, more or less, for the future of bioenergy, what is the answer to this? Because as I understood it, from not being the real expert in this field, as I have not been working with it the last years, how I understand it, it's a little bit okay for the CO2 cycle. We have simply not enough time to use extensive bioenergy because until we are able to catch back the CO2 in the plants, we will not meet our CO2 goals. What is the short answer to this? Is there a short answer to this? Is there any answer to this?
Yeah, so I think all the analysis have shown, especially specifically from the IEA, that we will need all the technologies to reduce carbon emissions, and on all different markets, including energy conservation, of course. So it has to be integrated. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I would agree, and that's the challenge is really, well, how to implement this practically. You know? So it's this, and we have been showing this integration aspects. I think everybody agrees on it, but it makes it more challenging than in the past how to implement these things.
Does it mean that because this is also something that has a lot to do with the future in the CETP? Does it mean that we need from the bioenergy sector work closer together with the carbon capture and usage people? Is this a topic for the future?
Yes, and also with the let's say the GTI on the circular bioeconomy. Yeah, so this all needs to be integrated, and we have to. I mean, I don't know how. So this was the question from Hans Günther. How are you going to do this? But I have no idea. But it's in order to go forward with bioresources and also for energy, we have to work also in that area together, and so we have to find new ways for that.
Let me say that's cool, because that gives us a lot of work to do in the framework also of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership together. We have reached the end of our time slot, and I thank you very, very much for taking this effort and also preparing everything for this presentation. Thank you also for the audience out there. Again, keeping listening and watching and contributing also with your questions. There are many things that still have to be answered and discussed. Maybe some open questions can be answered via the chat also after this session, but we have to come to an end now. Thank you very much, everyone, also my co-moderators, and hopefully see many of you already next Friday and latest in the course of the work towards the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Thank you and have a good weekend.
Have a nice weekend.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
everyone.
Nice
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.